Hey, what's good, y'all? Man, let's get into it today. Yesterday we talked about the Cowboys D line going against the Giants O line. Overall, felt pretty good about it. Today we'll talk about their running game versus let's say our linebackers, and I mean we can touch back into just our D line again, and then maybe even think about what we have in the back end as far as like run support, and like what we know about our guys. But let's kind of like, I was listening to some of their running backs talk a little bit.
You can
So
run and catch out.
I was using air quotes, the Dables.
so think about the Giants first and foremost with their running attack. What we're gonna have to like kind of be mindful of is the fact that Daniel Jones was a big part of their running attack. He had like 708 yards last year, 7 touchdowns. So that's about 45 yards a game. So, I mean, that's half of what Saquon was doing. So, Daniel Jones was a little bit of a running back too. I mean, utilizing that talent of Daniel Jones, that was probably a big reason of why the Giants were able to win. I mean, I think, remember last year there was a lot of games the Giants kind of pulled out, like everyone felt like they were going to be bad. So I think part of the coaching and understanding like your talent and how to like use that talent, and sometimes it's unorthodox. Sometimes, I mean, I know you don't want to really like depend on your quarterback to rack a lot of running yards for you. You're just kind of asking for wear and tear, and quarterback is the position that you kind of depend on. You can't find quarterbacks the way you can running backs. So I can understand like maybe the hesitance to kind of use Daniel Jones, but like Dayball came in and was like, man, I gotta So now they use Daniel Jones for sure, like running wise, kind of utilize that. The guys behind them right now on the depth chart I'm looking at are, as far as Saquon, is Matt Breida, Brightwell, and the rookie Eric Gray. I mean, it could be a thing where Brightwell might be. Well, he's on the depth chart. That's a pretty updated one, so you kind of have to wait and see on that. Saquon had 1,300 yards, 10 touchdowns. So running wise, that's kind of the attack. I think what we talked about with the offense and the defensive lines yesterday, I think that's more or less where that offensive line kind of thrives, is running the ball. So I think you want to use a heavy rotation of those running backs. Maybe try to use it a little bit more to keep Saquon fresh. I know Saquon, he kind of dwindled down last year. Let me actually pull up the stats. But his stats went down considerably, well, significantly. So I mean, I think the first games he was like 100 yards, and then like the last 7 or 8 games he just kind of tailed off. And he took a big load. Like, 295 attempts. That's also off of 57 receptions, so well over 350 touches last year. So that's a lot. Saquon's been a little fresh, I think, because of those injuries and being able to be put on the shelf. So you're not technically necessarily ran. He didn't get run to the ground yet. But the Giants, they're on their way to it. And that's why I guess it's so hard to kind of commit to these running backs long term. And I mean, they can strike and be as mad as they want, but unfortunately they don't really have leverage. If they did, they'd be getting paid, they'd be getting the contracts. Something would happen when they hold out, but I think those owners are clad tight, and the running backs are starting to understand, because like when you see them come to agreement with some of these contracts, they maybe get like $1 million more than what they would have gotten in the franchise, and still coming away with 1-year contracts. So I think to some point you're gonna have to prove it every year, and unfortunately, some guys just bodies aren't built to last. And that's my thing about the, kind of with Daniel Jones. I think with, as far as him like running the ball, any quarterback, when you're gonna run them like that, I mean, you're seeing what it does to the career of these actual running backs who are built to run the ball. So when you have quarterbacks kind of taking on half the load of a starting running back, I mean, Daniel Jones, he outran the second running back last year by 500 yards. So, I mean, that's, I get it though. Like, I mean, it helped the Giants be successful. And I guess if you, some franchises, honestly, they probably need to kind of think about, like, just flipping those quarterbacks like that. And maybe you don't have them for 15 years, but you get these guys well into maybe their 10th, 11th year, until once that athleticism goes out, then you just kind of, you go and get you another athletic quarterback. If you're going to continue to, put the touches on them the way some of these teams are. Because you got to think they're also getting hit back in that pocket too. So it's not just when they run the ball, but like, they get hit from the pocket once they let off the ball. Saquon, I'm trying to get a game by game. Let's see if they'll give me that. They don't give me that. Let me see. Let's try something else. But yeah. So I think Cowboys. Let's see, our linebackers. We have Damone Clark, LVE. We have Harper. We just moved Marquise Bell. Let me make sure I'm telling you on the right linebacker. We don't have a lot of linebackers, honestly, because you're going to be like, Marquise Bell was actually a safety. And then they moved him. They're going to play him from that nickel backer. And the Cowboys actually set up in a lot of nickel back like stances. So I think the depth from a traditional linebacker in a Dan Quinn defense isn't, I don't really think it's that crucial. I mean, they have all the depth in what they have in Clark. They're not gonna show me. Let's go. All right, so Vander Esch, Harper, Clark, and then you of course have Marquise Bell. He's going to be kind of helping out at that nickelback position. Kurtz can play that nickelback. They're going to also probably get Mukwamu and Wanye involved. Running wise, you have Mozzie, he's there. Hankins, middle of your line, you'll kind of use Ghost and Gallimore. So we got some good depth. I wouldn't say our run stoppers are elite just yet, but if Clark can take a step up, I kind of like what I saw from him in preseason. I think he's on his way to being a great linebacker. Mozzie, Jonathan Hankins. I like Hankins. I like what he did for our defense, and I think Mozzie could learn from him. As of right now, there's just a lot of. From what I see in the tape, I feel like once he starts playing with the actual ones, you'll see a lot. because I think some certain teams, once they start narrowing in on him, and it just, I mean, some snaps he would play, he'll be in with like the second defensive line, and I think the Seahawks, they played their number one, their first string offensive line. So you just had them in positions where, I mean, it'll be different. It'll definitely be different with DeMarcus Lawrence and Parsons and Osa lined up next to him. So you'll see a different Mozzie. I like what we can kind of have flexibility with Golston. Maybe you might see Fehoko, the rookie, kind of get some steps at the 3 tech, but I think run defense wise, we have improved. I like what Saquon is overall. Like you respect him, but I don't know, for some reason against the Cowboys, he hasn't really, he's had more times where we've kind of contained him than not. So, and that has, I think, a big thing to do with with the kind of offensive lines they've had. I like what Thomas and Smith can maybe do for you. But, just the rest of that offensive line still has questions. Evan Neal, they're hoping that he can. I was actually watching a podcast with the Giants, and they're actually talking about Evan Neal and hoping he can play average. And so, and talking, like, just listening to these Giants folks, it was a Bad Dog on there, and 2 other people. I kind of recognize both of them. I just forget their names, but some of their main folks, So if you're talking about offensive line, right, you're talking about getting average play, especially, like, even if, regardless of the fact that Evan Neal was a top 10 pick, right? He was a top 10. I think he was picked 7 overall last year. Rookie, but nonetheless, you're playing right tackle. You're the rookie. You're not even being asked to play the harder tackle position. And from year 1 going into year 2, the narrative on you is, I hope we can get average play. I was listening to Voch today, or it was one of his podcasts. I don't know if it was the old one or the one he recently did today, but I was listening to him, and he was just, he was just kind of like just laughing at the fact that, like, it was him and Foots, and he was just laughing at every kind of concern Foots would bring up. But, like, when you want to compete, like, with teams, and I think that's where the disrespect kind of comes in with the Cowboys, is that, like, people treat us like we're just regular. Like, like we just have a lot of regular kind of pieces, or they let the Dak interceptions kind of override the fact that they got, like, real all-pro talent on this team. And so when you're talking about, I hope my right tackle can play average, you want him to be an average right tackle going against Micah Parsons, going against DeMarcus Lawrence, trying to run block, and you have, Damone Clark's going to be better than average. LVE is average, he's actually, a little bit above average, especially when you put a decent defensive tackles in front of him. So something he hasn't always had his whole career. So I think with Evan Neal, the fact that you're, what I'm saying, like, you want him just to be average, that should be a little concerning, And so when you're talking, like, you're kind of hyping yourself up to be like this team this year, and I think they've just been down so long that they forget that teams are very good, like, they're just hoping to be average. And I think that's the Giants' mindset. And because now that they're not bad and they're average, they still don't understand that you got to still be very good, right? To like compete with the likes of the Eagles or the Chiefs, or to compete with these teams, that, and they kind of saw it in the playoffs, I think the Giants overall last year, I think they went from, we're going to be bad, I know we're going to be bad, to, we look good and we can actually compete, and then, we're still bad, and they make it to the playoffs, they beat Minnesota, and it's like they start to hype themselves up, and it's like, we know we're going to lose to the Eagles, but we're still going to win. And then they lose, and then it's like, and now the offseason has come, and they've made a few additions, that have, that I think they replace a lot of bad players with some average talent. And averages can be a good thing, but that's if you have a lot of elite pieces. Like last year, we just needed an average cornerback, a cornerback too, right? And we didn't have that. We had like bad dudes once, like Brown and Lewis went down. And at that point, had we had average, you might win the Jacksonville game. You might win the Packers game if you had a just around average, right? But I think in their position where you don't have a lot of elite, truth be told, on their offense, and I think there's a tier in between average and elite, right? Like you just have you're above average. I think that's great, right? That's being great. It's not elite, but it's great. It's average to me is good, right? So, going back, I guess, to this running game, you have a lot of average offensive linemen. I think their guards are a little below average. When you have guys who you don't like, but you feel they're in competition, it's just too much trying to talk yourself into this type of thing. I'm hearing from the Giants camp. So, and then they're trying to talk themselves into it because they just really want to, be able to beat the Cowboys, or they want to beat the Eagles, or they're ready to be back in contention for playoffs. And I think, man, they got two good pieces with the offensive linemen, Andrew Thomas and John Michael Schmitz. That's two real good pieces. If Evan Neal can be more than average, if he can actually live up to that top 10 pick, you're like one draft away from putting together an elite offensive line, going from being one of the. They've been bad for a while, that offensive line, and that's again not to say they haven't tried, but so running the ball, as far as Saquon, Breida, and that's Saquon. If you remember, he was supposed to be a very good running back. And had it not been for the injuries and just the Giants not having good offensive line play, I think you would have really, saw a super generational type of guy. But it's it's the law of averages. So, but even with that being said, Saquon still did his thing. He ran for 1,300 yards. 10 touchdowns. Injuries have. He's been good. He got through almost the whole season last year. I guess he sat down the last game, since they kind of clinched and had nothing to play for. 2021 missed 13 games. His rookie year, he played all 16. 2020 only played 2 games. So he's probably back on the up and up. He's missed enough time to where he doesn't have that wear and tear. I think he had, carries. 261 rookie, 217, 19, 162. So, 2020, 2021, he didn't have 200 carries in 2 years, in both of those years. So, I think he's pretty fresh. You're looking at a guy with the wear and tear of somebody going into maybe their. Zeke at this point had. His 5th year was going down. So I think Saquon still has about 2 years left of elite play, especially with his style. He wasn't this big back who was gonna eventually get slow. He's just always been kind of a bigger back that just speed has always been kind of more on this side. Doesn't he probably takes way better care of himself than Zeke did, and doesn't have the wear and tear Zeke had. Zeke probably had multiple 300-yard seasons, and 300-yard seasons, that's 900 carries, and in 5 years, Saquon barely has over 954. So I think Zeke might have had in 3 years what Saquon had in 5. So Saquon still has a couple good years left in him. You can't blame the Giants for doing what they did. So Saquon is still very much a weapon, but not for long. But we got to deal with him at least this year. So, but, I don't think you didn't really put together the offensive line in time to utilize a talent like Saquon. But, the offensive line is on their way. So, running the ball will be in their best interest. But there's still, I still like our linebackers, our defensive line to be able to contain the run. I like a lot what I saw from Mozzie. Hankins, he's been pretty much on bubble wrap, but he made a difference last year coming in. You got some good play from guys like Donovan Wilson, J-Ron Curse. Not really film guy. I want to just do my research on the other team. At least we can know their names, So talk to y'all a little bit, and we can be mindful of what these guys have on their team. But I'm pretty confident in our ability to stop their run. Breida, Brightwell, they didn't really carry the ball a lot. They didn't really do much for you last year. Eric Gray's another guy, just another body in the room. If they continue to make Daniel Jones the second running option, then, those guys are going to have slim pickings because Saquon's not at a position where I don't think he's really ready to come off his carries. Especially on a 1-year contract. I think Saquon's going to be trying to be on the field as much as he can. And then Daniel Jones is going to steal a lot. So I don't know if the backups are going to really make as much of a difference. I think Eric Gray possibly, just because he's a different type of running back. So Eric Gray can more in the passing game maybe than the running game. But that's about it, y'all. I don't really... what we got? Yeah, I'll talk to you about just, defensively, where Harper, Van Der Esch, Clark. My opinion on Clark again. I think he's going to be one of the better linebackers this year. And he doesn't have necessarily, you're going to have your Greenlaws. You got your Fred Warner. You have... trying to think of other guys. Bobby Wagner. In NFC, you have other linebackers, but I think Clark can kind of shoot up there and be one of the more well-known linebackers. Hopefully, Van Der Esch can play at the peak of his career this year, whatever that may look like. Devin Harper. He's been around these couple years. Was practice squad guy last year. But I haven't seen much, the guys, all the podcast community, all the guys, they've covered him. But he's just one of those guys that you just don't know enough about him yet. But you have good confidence in that he can make a team over Jabril Cox and Jefferson. So you have confidence that he made the team. I trust our front office a lot when it comes to just decisions they make and things working out, especially when they're just kind of off the wall kind of decisions, right? I think Devin Harper making a team over Leighton Vander Esch was a very off the wall kind of thing, but it'll be. He should be able to get some snaps because we're thin at linebacker, so he should be able to play here and there. As y'all know, Marquise Bell. So running game wise, we'll kind of see if we've been able to improve. Got to contain Daniel Jones. Got to contain Saquon. Attack those left guards. And we'll see what we do, man. So I guess before we. Titans have Daniel Bellinger. He might be kind of one of those blocking tight ends. Upside ability to create impact. Yeah, okay. So he's a good blocker. From what this little scouting report says. But I mean, he's another tight end I feel like their fan base is confident in. They like Bellinger. He's probably kind of like how we feel about I don't know. How do we feel about Hendershot? I don't know if we really like Hendershot and Schoonmaker the way the fans like Bellinger over there in Giants land. So Darren Waller, they're very hype on Daniel Bellinger, but I mean, they're not Travis Kelce, right? They're not George Kittle, but they're good tight ends. So I think Darren Waller. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, no, Darren Waller, he's I think they'll be a little complimentary. You might see a lot of 2 tight end sets, especially the fact that you don't have a deep wide receiver room. But yeah, no, that's pretty much it, man. I think we got it, man. As far as that's another matchup I like in our favor. When you talk about our linebackers and our defensive line containing the run, whether that's Daniel Jones, you're going to get a good dose of Daniel Jones. You're going to get a heavy dose of Saquon and a sprinkle of those other 3 guys. But, I mean, let me know what y'all think, man. I feel good. I feel good about our D-line and O-line matchup tomorrow. And I feel good about just overall the running game from the Giants going against, our guys who are responsible for containing the run defense. There we go. But yeah, y'all tell me what y'all think, man, and I'll holler at y'all tomorrow, man. We'll go against our pass defense versus their passing attack. So all the components that make up that, and we'll talk about it. Maybe look at a couple numbers, find a couple interviews, and just try to learn a little bit more. I'm gonna holler at y'all.